Welcome to the PodoTron Network.
You know, it doesn't matter what walk of life you come from, your race, religion, whatever. Chances are that the legacy of HBCUs and their graduates affect more than one aspect of your everyday life. HBCUbiquity.
Yeah. Welcome aboard.
Welcome to another episode of the new HBCUbiquity podcast. I'm your host, Thomas Joyner Jr., and thank you for listening to this week's installment. Question, or questions plural. What are opportunity zones? And what do they have to do with HBCUs? We're going to jump straight into this week's episode and be joined by Mr. Bob Jenkins, the Senior Managing Director of Renaissance Equity Partners, as well as Mr. Larry Sally, Chairman of the HBCU Community Development Action Coalition, or CDAC for short. They'll be discussing with us the basic ins and outs of what opportunity zones are, how they can revitalize and add value to HBCU finances and their surrounding communities, and how you, yes, you listening to this right now, can get in on opportunity zones and reap the financial benefits. You know, eventually this COVID-19 lockdown is going to end, and best believe that all of us will have to adjust to a new normal. Now, what will that new normal look like? And how can we and our schools maximize these new opportunities? Pun intended. The answers may come in today's forward planning conversation. These times will pass, but let's talk about what comes next. Welcome to another episode of the new HBCUbiquity. Yeah. We're back on the new HBCUbiquity podcast with Bob Jenkins, Senior Managing Director of Renaissance Equity Partners, and Mr. Larry Sally, Chairman of the HBCU Community Development Action Coalition, a nonprofit started in 2010 committed to campus transformations and community development. Gentlemen, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good on this end. No, I have no complaints. My family's healthy and virus-free, so I have no complaints. How about yourselves?
I am well. My family's well.
We're weathering the storm here in South Carolina, but just trying to do what we can to keep our HBCU strong.
So and I definitely agree with that, and I appreciate that sentiment, man. So let's go and jump right into this. To give the listeners a background about and context for this conversation, can you all break down what are opportunity zones and when, and I guess how they were, quote unquote, created, for lack of a better term?
Sure. The Opportunity Zone program was a product of the Tax Act of 2017. What the program does is it provided every governor, all 50 governors, as well as the mayor of the District of Columbia, as well as the governors of Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands, to designate 25% of the low-income census tracts in their communities or states as opportunity zones. And there are significant tax incentives for investors who invest in opportunity funds that use that resources to reinvest in real estate projects and businesses in these federally designated opportunity zones. So there are like 8,000 opportunity zones around the country.
So, Bob, you've been involved in several public-private partnerships over the years, especially in Black communities. What makes opportunity zones different than the other ones that you've been involved in the past, like say with the Hampton Roads project or other projects?
Sure. Hampton Roads Ventures, as well as Renaissance Partners, are actively involved in another program called New Markets Tax Credits. Great program. It helps to attract capital, but it's very competitive. And the demand for the new market tax credits greatly exceeds the supply. But with the Opportunity Zone program, it does not work that way. In theory, there is an unlimited supply of capital. So an investor who will invest capital gains, there has to be capital gains, in an opportunity fund, and that opportunity fund reinvests that money into a project in a low-income area, he receives significant tax advantages and incentives. And there's no limit. There's no limit. I mean, if there's an opportunity zone in someone's hometown, there can be 100 projects in that opportunity zone that can attract capital for their projects. And nationally, there are, 104 HBCUs, of which roughly half of them are located in opportunity zones. And this provides a fantastic opportunity for we as people of color to organize these funds so we can attract this capital into our community. And as I said, there's no limit.
So kind of like municipal bonds that you can only invest in with capital gains?
In theory, what happens is the investor invests their capital gains into an opportunity fund. Now the fund takes that capital and reinvests it into a project. Now it has to be a profitable project because the investor is looking for a return on their investment. This is not capital. This is not charity. Okay. The investor is looking for a return on their investment. But what the three of us know is there are a number of investment opportunities in neighborhoods of color that are profitable. They are just overlooked. Mm-hmm. The example I often give is from time to time, we read that a grocery store, a new supermarket opened in a low-income Black neighborhood, and sales are much higher than expectations. We're not surprised. We knew that we have money, we can spend money. We know that our community can be sites of profitable investments for investors. It's just a matter of getting that capital where we need it.
Kind of like when Magic Johnson 20 years ago was investing Starbucks in low-income areas, showing that there was going to be, a return on investment on those.
Exactly. Prime example. Exactly.
So, Larry, with that said, from what we've heard from Bob, how do opportunity zones benefit the HBCUs that they surround?
Well, one way that they benefit the HBCUs, most HBCUs are located in emerging communities, impoverished communities, low-income communities. So there's a lack of jobs, or a lack of facilities, or a lack of resources. By having opportunity zones within those areas, it allows private investment to come in. For example, you have several HBCUs that are now getting into STEM research. Having opportunity zone funds in those areas allows them to develop facilities and partnerships with other corporations and other entities that can bring their students to bear, can say, well, hey, look, we've got a place for your students to gain jobs and opportunities, for your faculty to do research, as well as, most campuses are now, have been out there for a number of years. They need facilities, housing facilities, and other related facilities. They can co-partner with HBCUs to do that. For example, several years ago, we undertook a project to develop a teaching hotel. We had a relationship with Holiday Inn to develop a facility right near our campus, as well as address a need for housing for some of our related partners, which were in the medical industry, because we have two major hospitals located near the campus. Having opportunity zone funds would have given us the equity capital that we needed to get that project off the ground. That was the one thing that we lacked. We had an investor, we had the land, we had control of all the other resources, but the college itself lacked the financial resources to be able to bring that project to bear. So that's a prime example of how the opportunity zone funds would directly benefit a campus and that college itself.
Let me pause you right there because, not just HBCUs, but higher education institutions can be tricky when it comes to numbers and finances, depending on what you're looking at and how you're looking at it. So how does that relate to what you just said and what Bob was saying a few minutes ago about how the projects have to demonstrate profitability? How would you be able to demonstrate profitability on a higher education campus before jumping into the opportunities for investors, so to speak?
Well, of course, we in our particular project, we had a pro forma. We were able to capture a certain segment of the market, which we understood through our relationships that it would be able to cash flow as well as create a decent return on the dollar. The biggest problem that the campuses have at this point is they lack that capital. They're in some respects, they're restricted from some of the resources that they can seek. You have the HBCU fund, but taking those dollars and putting them into, let's say, for-profit ventures can be tricky and difficult. So you got to find creative ways to get financing in. And most of the campuses have difficulty going in and just pulling in strictly investment funds or bank funds. But building a strong portfolio, having demonstrated partners, being one of the resources that most of the campuses have are land resources. They have those, but in those communities, they're undervalued. So being able to get that injection of cash through another source it would be ideal for the campuses and their surrounding communities.
So with that said, then can opportunity zones impact the daily lives or even, for that matter, the daily cost of living for HBCU students?
Definitely. I would give you a couple of examples.
Okay.
We know of another HBCU in a southern state, has a very smart president. The lady is innovative. And she presently is working to develop 2 projects on her campus. One project is mixed use. It would have housing targeted to junior faculty, graduate students, and other people who live in that town. And next door to that would be a teaching hotel. Now, this is a growing town in the South. Unfortunately, I cannot name it for a number of reasons. But this is a very viable project to be undertaken by the HBCU. And the project will have a number of advantages to the college. Number one, the mixed use project will create housing for her junior faculty and her staff. The mixed use project is going to have a very nice restaurant, a sit-down restaurant, the first one on that side of town. And it will create jobs so that her students can work there part-time as opposed to going across town for their part-time jobs. The teaching hotel is going to be a franchise hotel. It's going to be managed by an experienced company that has expertise doing that, and that will create a career ladder for her students. This is a prime example. Also, the project is being structured in such a manner that the HBCU is going to earn a part of the revenue. So at the end of the year, when there is a distribution of income, the HBCU is going to have their share of the income.
So 2 things with that, Bob. Number one, it sounds to me like another potential benefit to HBCUs in general from this is that it creates new and additional revenue streams, which all of our schools definitely need more than ever. But the second observation was what you just described. And for those that are listening that may not be aware, Bob Jenkins, like myself, is a Howard man, HU, and that sounded like the old Howard Inn.
Yes, it does. Unfortunately, the Howard Inn was before its time.
Yes, it was. I remember the Howard Inn was probably 2 or 3 years from closing, right when I was a freshman. But good memories there, and I'm glad that building is still being used for the bookstore and the admin offices and that kind of stuff. But moving on and sticking on to this train of thought here, what are also, say, the direct benefits or potential benefits that opportunity zones can have on the communities that surround HBCUs? And I would like for both Bob and Larry to take a stab at that.
Sure. The HBCU, the Opportunity Zone program, can assist the HBCU to undertake major real estate projects as well as businesses that not only benefit the people who live on campus, but also the surrounding neighborhood. For example, when you were at Howard, if you wanted to buy a loaf of bread or a carton of milk, you had to probably drive across town because there were no grocery stores at that time on that corridor. The Opportunity Fund program can be used to attract capital to develop projects that would include stores that bring quality goods and services to that community. Also, if you're in a retail store, somebody must work there. It has to be a cashier, it has to be a manager. So these are jobs for people who live in that neighborhood.
Yeah.
So the Opportunity Zone program is a way for the HBCU to attract capital, because the HBCU is an anchor in that neighborhood to undertake projects that benefit everyone, from the president to the faculty to the people who live nearby. I also know of an HBCU that has an older dormitory, and their vision is to attract Opportunity Zone funds to redevelop that dormitory into housing for seniors, so that the seniors will live on campus and be able to audit classes. So it's a lifetime learning community. So this helped the HBCU because now they have these additional people on their campus who are going to audit classes. Therefore, they're going to pay money to the HBCU. Mm-hmm. The project is going to generate income from the rents. So that's going to allow the HBCU to enhance their cash flows. And then there are a number of senior citizens who are looking for quality of places to live. So that serves them. It's a win-win for all.
Yeah, and just to add to that, Bob, we know that a lot of corporate entities are looking at Opportunity Zone sites to relocate their headquarters, to look at manufacturing facilities, research facilities. All of those opportunities are wonderful for the HBCU campuses. I mean, the announcement that Amazon had about a year ago about creating a second headquarters there in the DC area, the site that they finally selected is in an Opportunity Zone. Imagine someone like Amazon or Uber or some of the other major corporate entities locating in an Opportunity Zone near an HBCU. The jobs that they create technology-wise, the other resources that they attract in themselves, because, a lot of entities want to be next to those major corporations because they want to do business with them. They're just immeasurable. Having them in those communities, the housing opportunities that they provide, because housing is something that can be funded through opportunity zones. Those present great opportunities for development in those communities and opportunities for the residents of those communities. So, we see, just numerous benefits to being a part of the program. The real crux of the situation is being able to have a project shovel ready and to attract those dollars, which I know Bob can speak to a bit in terms of how soon they would have to prepare and what are the best opportunities to attract business.
Right, that's a good point. Among the incentives for the Opportunity Zone program is an investor who invests in an opportunity fund can defer his capital gains up to 2026. And if his funds and if his monies has been in the Opportunity Fund for 5 years, he gets a 10% reduction in the amount of capital gains that he pays. So do some quick arithmetic. If he can only defer his tax payments until 2026, and his money must be in the fund for 5 years in order to maximize the benefit, that shows that his money must be in the fund by December 30, 2021, next year, in order to get the full benefit of the tax advantage. So therefore, the projects really must be shovel ready by the end of 2021.
But Bob, with what you mentioning at the beginning of this, that these opportunities, I guess pun intended, were created by the 2017 new tax code. Would your monies placed in there, if they're placed in there, say now, would that be subject to, say, any type of ramifications from the upcoming election or future elections down the road?
I doubt it very seriously. The Opportunity Fund program really was the brainstorm of Senator Booker, a Democrat from New Jersey, and Senator Scott, a Republican of South Carolina. It enjoys the support of both parties. And I've heard that Congress has aspirations to maybe tinker with the program, but I would bet money that the program is going to stay alive for several years.
Leave it to the black senators. All right.
Yeah, you're right.
Let me ask you guys this before we keep going, just to make sure that we're all on the same page with the listeners, that is. HBCUs tend to fall into two buckets in terms of locations. So would you guys say that there's more of a potential upside to opportunity zones for HBCUs that are located in rural areas or urban areas?
I would say it depends on the project. Obviously, if someone is building a nice a mixed-use project with a sit-down restaurant and a white tablecloth, that's going to work out better in an urban area than in a rural area. Mm-hmm. But Opportunity Zone programs can be used for workforce housing. It can be used for businesses. For example, let us say that a rural campus wants to do a project that is mixed use with retail. And instead of the retail being a Starbucks, it's a Tractor Supply Company store. So there are still needs for capital, and there are still opportunities for investment in rural communities.
Gentlemen, I guess this question is also for both of you. What would you say are the downsides and risks associated with opportunity zones?
I would say the need to educate all parties involved that this is a for-profit real estate deal. It is not charity. So both the project sponsor as well as the investor needs to closely look at this project, look at the market studies, and be assured that this project is viable and it's going to work. That's one of the reasons that one of the things that Larry and others are doing as they implement the program for the HBCUs is to match the HBCU with a developer partner that can attract capital and has done these projects before, to assure so that the investors have confidence and safeguards that this project is going to work.
Well, that's certainly correct, Bob. I think one of the other challenges for the HBCUs, and Tom, I worked with an HBCU here in Columbia for 22 years. So I know the challenges. I ran the Community Development Corporation there, and we did a lot of off-campus projects there. But the major challenge is, of course, the pre-development process and trying to fund those processes, because, HBCUs are not natural developers. We have individuals that have come to us from all facets of the community saying, hey, we can do these projects, we can do those. Like Bob said, doing your due diligence, finding the resources to do the necessary research and due diligence on the front side to ensure that it's going to be a viable project. Because as Bob said, when the investors come in, they're looking for a return on their investment, and they want something that is going to work and have a reasonable chance of success. So being able to put those projects together, package them, and find the right relationships is important. We had an advisor that helped us find an investor who had hotel experience, because in our particular project, building a teaching hotel, we knew that we did not have that experience. That investor was willing to back us to bring the dollars that are necessary to finance the construction and operate the hotel in partnership with us. But in the end, like I said, the problem that we had, of course, was a lack of capital to seal the deal. But those are all challenges. I think right now the major challenges, as Bob said, also information, because you've got HBCUs that have, some concept of what they want to do, but they don't have as much information and resources to be able to say, well, hey, we got a project. Can we put this in the hopper? And we believe that it's shovel ready. They can contact the HBCU Community Development Action Coalition, and we can try to help put them with someone that might be able to provide them with some technical assistance. And we can also provide some technical assistance ourselves to those organizations, because, of course, we work on the campuses and in the communities. But getting that information out there and quickly is vital to them participating in the Opportunity Zone program.
Gentlemen, I want to switch gears for a quick second while staying on the same topic. Do either of you all, foresee in the near future opportunity zones creating career paths for HBCU students? Are there some meaningful jobs at the end of all this for students that are, say, majoring in business right now, or pre-law, or any type of major?
Yes, I think it provides an opportunity for HBCU graduates to organize their own businesses. When we look at the opportunity funds that are around now, including the one I'm involved in, they're fairly large, but they don't have to be. Remember, all we are doing is taking capital gains to invest in a fund that reinvests those funds into a business. So if Aunt Sarah sold her rental house that she owned in this area, the area that now became gentrified, Aunt Sarah now has some capital gains. Mm-hmm. So maybe if her nephew is starting a tech company or starting some type of venture, they really could organize a small fund with only for Aunt Sarah to be the investor, and then the nephew or the niece can start a business enterprise, because it need not be millions of dollars. So it really provides an opportunity for us as people of color to look at ways that we can invest in our own communities, and particularly if you have entrepreneurial ventures by our own and structured and managed by our young HBCU students. I think it's a fantastic opportunity.
Bob, I want to pause you right there because I want you to elaborate on that a little bit more. You just said it doesn't have to be $1 million. And when people keep hearing, terms like capital gains over and over again, there's a perception that you're talking about a certain economic bracket, so to speak. But what you're saying is that anybody, the middle class, even upper lower class can take advantage of this. Am I hearing that correctly?
Yes. I mean, many people, particularly middle class people, have capital gains. If you have a house that you don't live in and you sold that house, that profit is a capital gain. So how do we, as people of color, how do we find ways to use our own capital gains to reinvest in our communities?
Gentlemen, in closing, what can listeners of this podcast do to learn more about Opportunity Zones?
Larry?
Well, one thing that they can do, of course, the federal government has a fair amount of information on the Opportunity Zone process and how it works. Bob, do you have the link for that particular site?
No, but I can send it to Mr. Joyner later.
Yes, and we can post it on the new HBCUbiquity podcast Instagram. So yes, please do.
Yes, I can do.
They also, I was going to also say they can go to our website, HBCUcdac.org, and we have information on some of the efforts that we're making in terms of opportunity zones. And we also, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, we've got a link maybe buried in there on the site to the Opportunity Zone information site. But I do think that we need to take advantage of it. I think our students need to be thinking realistically about opportunities in those careers, both as developers and in development finance, because those opportunities are going to come along. They're going to be there, but we need to have people of color, people that come from our communities that understand those communities and the challenges. So those are careers and opportunities that we need to be thinking about. And if we've got alumni and folks that are thinking about investing in those areas, we're creating a new fund for that. They can go to the CDAC website and they can look at opportunities to invest into the fund to put monies back into those communities. So I can say that as the chairman, but I do want to share that with you, and I'll turn it over to you, Tom.
HBCUCDAC, HBCUC as in community, D as in development, A as in action, C as in coalition.org. Gentlemen,
correct.
Thank you very much for your time and for your all this knowledge and information today. This is going to be very helpful to our listeners.
Thank you, sir.
Well, thank you for having me.
Pleasure.
You gentlemen stay productive and stay safe up there.
We will try. Thank you much. Good day.
You do the same.
This is Thomas Joyner Jr., and you're listening to the new HBCUbiquity. Welcome back to the new HBCUbiquity podcast. Special thanks to Bob Jenkins at Renaissance Equity Partners and Larry Sally of the HBCU Community Development Action Coalition for today's enlightening conversation. Yeah, this was a lot to chew on for today. Better yet, food for thought as we start to dwell on tomorrow and the day after, as all of this shall pass. Several HBCUs are already exploring, and in some cases, already taking advantage of the benefits of opportunity zones. Schools like Stillman, Morris Brown, Fisk, Johnson C. Smith, and more have identified their placements in these areas and are incorporating that into their future planning. Downsides? Of course. Opinions vary, well, in some circles at least, on the intentions and effects of gentrification. But the level of gentrification varies from area to area. Either way, how do you envision the campus and surrounding area of your alma mater, say 20 years from now? Now, whether that's an optimistic or pessimistic vision, how does your alma mater and its surrounding area arrive to be where you envision it 20 years from now? After all, nothing happens overnight. Lots of reevaluation of long-term planning going on these days. If you want to learn more, though, about what you heard us talking about today, go to www.hbcucdac.org. Again, that's www, H as in historic, B as in black, C as in college, U as in university, C as in community, D as in development, A as in action, C as in coalition.org. HBCUcdac.org. I'm Thomas Joyner Jr. Thanks again for listening to this week's episode of the new HBCUbiquity podcast. And let's talk again on next week. Take care.
Sign up and be a part of the team. Be a PodoTron at PodoTron.com. Thank you for listening to PodoTron.